Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Tong, and I'm with Alfresco Software. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today titled Compliant Laboratory Information Management Systems, a Modern Approach Leveraging Alfresco. On the call with me today is Dave and Ben from TSG. They're going to talk about the solution that they have for the life sciences industry, and that revolves around managing some batch files for their customer. Before we do that, I want to do a little intro and an overview of Alfresco, and then I'll pass the presentation over to Dave for an introduction, and then Ben for a demonstration. At the end of this, we will be taking questions, so please put your questions in the chat window to the right of your screen or in the Q&A tab in WebEx. So with those housekeeping items behind us, just want to move forward. On this first slide, you'll see some information about the DIA conference. We were at the Drug Association conference in San Diego earlier in June, and while we were there, TSG was present with us, and we talked about this solution that we're going to present today. In fact, we had a poster session for that event where our customer was talking about how they manage their quality systems with a solution that TSG built on Alfresco. So that's really the genesis of this presentation and a little bit of the background. So if you're at the DIA event and you met us there, happy that you could show up to our webinar, and if you were not, then I guess look for us at future events. In general, what I want to start is in terms of kind of setting the stage, is to talk about capturing information and really from a then and now standpoint. So back, in a lot of production organizations, when they were managing data, it was really a lot of it was paper-based, and you would have questions about the legibility or information loss with data entry in the capture systems and processes. It was all very manual and dependent on people, which when things are that way, they end up being typically, number one, very expensive, and number two, very error-prone. And number three, there's probably a better way to do it, especially considering the technology that we have now. Because you can take those paper forms and turn them into electronic forms and put them on tablets and even make voice recognition, help drive the entry in those, and have that data get directly injected into databases and systems. And so from a totally paper manual way, you can go totally digital and electronic. And so there's a spectrum of solutions out there, and what we find as we talk with customers is that we have customers all across the board. We have folks that are starting from a very paper and manual-based process. We have some that have made some strides, but they're always looking for that piece of efficiency that they can have, that they can either maybe batch things up and make it a process where they take several processes and put them together and be able to manage that as an organization of files or data, all the way to they want to be able to provide end-to-end reporting on it as well. So we find customers in all different areas of that. And also what we find is that when we start talking about forms, that there's a lot of benefits that they can attach to around process control and access control, making sure the right people have access to the right content at the right time. Raw forms and document management, just being able to manage those documents and those content better in a more streamlined way. The ability to search and to be able to access old documentation, either for regulatory reasons or for checks and balances, things like that is very important. To be able to support the business process to archive data and documents over time and be able to access those as well. And really the end point of that is if you're managing documents as a records management and have to, through a records management process and have to declare those as records and manage this through a life cycle, we have a way and a solution for that. And the reason is because as a company and as a product, Alfresco helps streamline business-critical document processes. And so in general, there's lots of ways across an organization we can do that through contracts management and origination and customer onboarding or employee onboarding. Solutions can look like lots of different things. In particular today, as we talk about the situation that we have around the laboratory information management system, that's a specific use case, but also realize as you're looking at this, if you have content that touches many parts of your organization, there might be ways that we can extend an Alfresco solution with TSG to touch and to improve different processes around your organization. And the reason because is Alfresco really is an enterprise content platform where We can manage documents in collaboration. We can sync it to the cloud. You can manage documents as records through a full records management suite. You can do case management, provide mobile access. And so a bit of an eye chart here, but we do provide really a full range of enterprise content management features within our platform. And the last point that I want to make is compliance, is that around the content that we're managing, most times our customers have a specific objective to be able to manage a regulation or to manage a reporting requirement or something that either their industry or a regulatory body places upon them because of what they do. And really specific to this conversation today around managing the content in this laboratory information system is being able to respond to those regulatory compliances, to understand what those requirements are and to bake that into the solution so that the client has what they need to be able to pass those regulatory requirements and not have that bog down their operations. And so I hope through this you can see is that Alfresco is a software platform, and we have great partners like TSG that are building solutions on it. But really the value we understand is what does it mean to your business and your processes and your operations so that you as an organization can respond better to what the market's requiring, to what your industry is requiring, and to where you want to grow. And so with that as an introduction, I'd like to turn the call over to Dave so he can give an overview of his solution and then go from there. So Dave, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. So just real quick, just from a TSG, we're only going to do one slide on TSG. We've been around for 18 years, really specialize in ECM solutions and technologies. A diverse industry, a lot of life science, and I'm going to show another slide, is particularly on the compliance side. From a nuke utility side, we've also done a lot in compliance with them, but also consistent with Alfresco Financial Services, manufacturing, insurance, food and beverage, travel associations, all that. We've been a partner with Alfresco since 2006, won the Implementation of the Year award in 2012 with New York Philharmonic, which we're pretty proud of the work we did there. Last year we were the Growth Partner of the Year, and this year we were lucky enough to win the America's Partner of the Year for Alfresco. As we looked at, for batch records, we really, the process before that when it comes to change control and compliance is something that since our founding we've done for a lot of clients. And I wanted to give an example without listing client names, but we've just done a lot of kind of change control compliance when it comes to SOP and manufacturing instructions for clients over and over again. And what our one client did and what Ben's going to go into is really kind of took a unique kind of document approach to empower really Microsoft Word users to do kind of a light kind of grow into electronic batch record. But we wanted to leverage off of what our experience is on the change control and compliance side. We are a consulting firm as well as a software firm as well. We do offer some of our compliance solutions as open source. So the ones you're going to see today, HPI, our high performance interface, is really our search and authoring interface. You're going to see that as part of the batch records when it comes to completing the form. Active Wizard is our kind of workflow initiation electronic form tool. You're going to see that as far as organizing the batch records as well as just kind of the form completion. We have other products, Open Overlay and Open Migrate, as well as Open Annotate, that are all kind of part of our compliance solution that we're not going to go into detail today. There's other seminars with Alfresco out there as well as stuff in our learning zone. But everything you're going to see today is part of our open source offering, so it's much more focused on our software products and making those products configurable. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ben to go into some specifics on the electronic batch records. Are you the presenter?
Maybe pass it to me, I think.
Oh, okay. Yep, there you go.
All right, so my client really wanted to replace the legacy LIMS system that they had with a document-centric, like Dave mentioned, a very author-oriented, document-centric approach to empower authors to be in control of their SOPs and in control of their approval process. Because their legacy system that they had really relied on terminal screens, printing out the forms and manually filling them in on the floor, and manually rekeying that data back into their entry system. When new fields were entered into their legacy system, they needed IT involvement and long projects in order to accomplish a simple update. And the SOP and work instructions that were presented to the end users didn't have as much rich detail as Word documents allow for. So in the existing paper-based process, they would print out all of the separate SOPs that were involved in making a batch of a product, combine them all into one big batch, write all the lot and batch expiration information on each individual document, and on the manufacturing floor, then handwrite in the data values as the data was collected. And at the end of the process, they would scan the completed documents and rekey them into the LIMS system after the completion of the batch. So here's an example of one of the paper-based forms that they printed out and the data that was collected. You can see it's not a very rich format for presenting to the end users, and we see the handwritten information for approvals and data collection. So some of the shortfalls of that is you're manually printing and combining all the documents, so there's potential for error of grabbing the wrong version of the document or the wrong document itself, as well as you're manually adding the batch information and the lot number information separately across every separate document. So phase one of this project was to flip it on its head and say that we're going to make the SOPs the central document, and the SOPs are the drivers of this. And to maintain a relationship between these documents, what is called a master batch record, to describe and relate the individual SOPs together. And once we've collected those together, to print them and to automatically apply consistent lot number, batch number, expiration date, as well as consistent page numbers across the entire batch record. So you'll see, as now the documents are Word documents that are stored in Alfresco, and the individual SOPs are rendered to a PDF and collected together into one batch record because of those relationships to each other. And at the end of the day, we have a batch record that's collected from the individual SOPs. So here's an example of a stitched together SOP, and I've highlighted here that the version and the approval date are automatically pulled from the Alfresco repository as part of best practices for metadata, as well as overlaying the lot number and the expiration date in the lower left-hand corner. So some of the shortfalls of still being paper-based is the data entry piece, which is manually handwriting that information onto the printed out batch record and manually keying that into the LIMS system, which could be error-prone with lots of duplicate entries and inconsistencies since you're recording it twice. So our phase two of that approach is to have the authors add the merge fields or add the data collection fields and their appropriate names directly into the Word documents, and intelligently extracting those fields to allow the data entry to be electronic and to merge all the final values onto the final batch record document, all electronic. So in this example, this is that same SOP, but we have inserted mail merge fields where all of the data collection is supposed to happen, so that at runtime when this batch is created, we're able to collect all the individual information and put the authors in charge of asking where information is to be collected and where it is to be stored in the Word document. So then the Word document that was created, this is the after view of a filled out record, and you'll see filled in the concentration and vendor lot number have been filled in electronically from this batch record system that we're going to demo in a minute. So the solution really empowers the authors to be in control of their SOPs and their documents, and to put them in control of the change control so that if they want to version or make a change or add a data field, they're in charge of it. It leverages all the document management best practices, and uses MS Word, which authors are familiar with and enjoy writing their documents in, and using merge fields to indicate where the values go and what data should be collected in those fields. So I'm now going to share my screen and I guess dive right into the demo here. Okay, so the story we're going to tell here is the batch record creation piece. I'm going to go ahead and create a batch record by choosing from a list of all of our products and consistently key in a lot number and expiration date one time at the beginning of the creation of this batch. As well as an expiration date for this product. And when I click the Create Batch Record, the system is assembling all of the individual separate SOPs into this batch record. And once the creation is completed, you'll see on the left side here, I list all of the individual documents that make up this batch record. And because I'm an author, I get to see all the individual documents, but per department, I would see the individual documents that I need to fill out as a part of my creation of this process. So when I click on a document to approve, we'll see the document itself in its rich format, as well as all of the placeholders for where the data is to be collected. And as the operator on the floor performing this part of the procedure, I'll choose the mail merge fields value, which will list all of the individual fields that I am to enter as a part of this SOP. And we'll notice that the lot number and expiration date were keyed once at the beginning, so if they were ever used in this document, it'll be replaced inside of that document automatically. So as the floor operator, when I approve this document, once I approve it, the information that I've collected is put directly into the SOP. 50% TSG lot number is substituted directly into the Word document. And when I choose the approve related document, the supervisor is able to do a second level of approval, because there's often a two-step approval that happens. So the supervisor will approve the selection and the data sampling that has occurred. Once this document's been approved, no further action is needed to be taken on this document, but I'll continue on with the rest of the SOPs that are involved in the production of this drug. So this document only has one field to enter. Type in the shelf life. And approve this document as well. And approve my final document as part of this SOP. and approve my final document. Once the final document is approved, the batch record is stitched together, all of the separate pieces of the document, into our final master batch record. And we'll see that the product name and product code is overlaid, as well as the lot number consistently on the top of every page of the document, as well as some overall page numbers. And we've produced an index page for each section, so each department has a separate index page to indicate what page numbers are there, as well as including what documents are there and what their approval and effective date is. And each individual document is attached into the batch record in the system. So from the reporting side, now that we've collected all of this information electronically as a part of the batch record, we can report on the information that was gathered in order to gather trends or any recurring data that has been observed on the floor. So because these are documents stored in the Alfresco repository, I can configure a search to be able to search on all these documents. And when I search, I'm able to see all of the last 25 batches of this document, of this drug that were run, as well as the trending temperature over time. So as a floor sampler, I'm immediately able to report that the temperature appears to be rising as the batches are getting larger in number. So I'm able to quickly pull statistics from gathering all of this data. The last piece of this kind of author-centric version of batch records is to show how the author is able to make a change in the document. So if there is a document that there's a new piece of information that needs to be collected, rather than asking IT for help, the author is in charge of able to make their change to the Word document, get the appropriate approvals, and the document will then be included as a part of the next batch record. So when I run a search in my control doc system for a specific SOP that I want to update, I see the list of all the SOPs that are in the system, and I'll find the SOP that I want to update, which is SOP sample 001, and I'll find the effective version of the document. And to make an update to this document, I will check out the current version of the document to create a new version. And may add my additional field that I want to add. And at the base of this author-driven data collection, I'm using a mail merge field here that I can train the author to add a field to collect the piece of information that I want to collect. So I will insert a mail merge field. And enter the name that will be presented to the user that's entering the data on the floor. now that I've got my document updated, I will check it back into the repository. And we'll see my new temperature field has been added. So as part of good doc control management, I will route this for approval in order to get the document into the approved state to be included in new batches that are created. So we use our Active Wizard product to drive a dynamic approval to the document in order to get the right approvers on the document. So I would choose my simple CR form to help describe this change. This dynamic workflow allows me to give some context to the approvers of what is changing in the document and why it's changing so that I can more quickly and accurately make my approval. And I'll indicate that this is a document change. And enter my change reason inside of this change request. And indicate to the author what the change is. I'm then able to pick my approvers of who is in charge of approving this document. And verify my information, and start this on an approval route. And we'll see I'm given a dynamic summary of who the approvers are, and depending on how complex the approval process is, there may be multiple steps. The wizard is very configurable in that I can go back and add more approvers, or if I say that this is a high priority change instead of a low priority change, we will see that the workflow has been dynamically updated to route to an initial QA user because it's a high priority change. To demo this quicker, I'll make it a low priority change, so there's just one approver. And finish my form. And start my approval workflow. So now that my route has been started, George has received an email letting him know that there is a document for his approval. So I will log in as George. And in his inbox, he has an item to approve my workflow document. George is immediately given the context of what he's approving, as well as being able to view the document that he's approving side by side with the change request. So reading my description of change, I see the temperature field has been added, and George approves. Now that this approval is completed, a few things have happened. An electronic signature page has been appended to the change request as well as the document to indicate the history of who approved this document. I'm also able to view the audit events to see what has happened with this document, as well as a workflow status if it was a multi-step workflow of who the approvers are on the document. This document is now in a 4.0 approved state. As a part of our best practices for pharma companies, there's usually a training period involved in training end users on the new procedures. to grab the new temperature value as a part of my process. So what I will do is set an effective date on this document of 2 weeks from now. And once I've set my effective date of August 8th, the night of August 8th, a job will run to make this the effective version of the document. And all batch records after August 8th that are generated will automatically include this new updated document and be collecting the updated temperature information. So we can really see how the authors are in charge of their documents and in charge of their data collection in what is reported and what is gathered with a very simple change that requires no IT involvement. So the last thing that we wanted to touch on was the futures of what we see doing next with this, which would be when checking out a new SOP, in addition to gathering the word fields that are there, to be able to specify some constraints on fields so that the user entering the data has to enter data between 90 and 100 to ensure more consistency, or mask that it must be a number as opposed to a word. As well as being able to introduce some referential integrity to calculate fields or to run calculations to say that it must fit within a certain field based on another value. So I'll pass control back to Melissa, I guess, if there were any questions.
Thank you. We do have one question so far. It is, the user interface seems to be something other than Alfresco. Is it a custom UI for this client, or is it a modification on Share, or something entirely different?
This is Dave. It's actually something entirely different. So when I mentioned at the beginning of the session we have our HPI product, this is a combination of our HPI and Active Wizard product, which runs on top of Alfresco, but it is a separate component for our life sciences customers. It has been validated for the customer that we're kind of demonstrating here, but it is a separate interface that runs on top of Alfresco for the demonstration here.
Great.
Any other question? Oh, you got another one, Melissa?
I'll read them off. It is, how is the data captured and stored, i.e. if the temperature is a recurring data point for many SOPs and different use cases, how is it stored independently?
So the data is gathered as part of the batch record in XML. So we're able to extract the information from the XML for reporting of running those searches. So as a part of the data capture process, it's dynamic in identifying all the possible word fields, and we're able to then search and extract that for data warehousing searching purposes.
Okay. And then does this solution work with Google Docs as well, or only Microsoft Word?
Right now it only works with Microsoft Word because we're leveraging off the mail merge for this one client. I think from the infrastructure could be, we're an integrator, so we can always say it could be. It isn't something that folks have asked us for yet. But basically within Google Docs or somewhere else, we'd need to both identify where the field would be, what the name of the field is, as well as have the vehicle, like mail merge, to be able to place that field component back into the Word document before we rendered it to PDF.
Okay. Our next question is, this is focused on the user experience for an author. Can you talk about what the user experience would be like for an end user?
I think when Ben's still showing his desktop, Ben, you want to just bring up I guess the end user we would be talking about is the person who would be completing the form. And so, we're showing the end user case where they have a PC in front. We've looked at cases where we could have this interface show on an iPad or other ones, but do you want to?
Yeah.
But basically, this is the interface we're talking about for an end user, and then when it comes to filling in the document, you know, this is the end user as far as the user on the floor as they're filling out the content of the batch record.
Great, thank you. I think that's all we have for questions here today. Thank you for your presentation. Do you guys have anything in closing for us then?
Yeah, so Ben's showing right now, there's, if anyone's interested, out on our blog at tsgrp.com, there's the modernizing the controlled documentation and batch records, as well as in our learning zone. It's kind of a long link, but you can look, I believe it's in the Active Wizards section of the learning zone for a demonstration we're going to be recording. We are recording this session. That will be available as well as Ben is in the process of updating, so there will be screen cams and other shots on this solution out on our website if you have any additional questions. Lastly, either Ben or myself, our email addresses are above if you have any questions, or obviously you can direct them at Alfresco as well. And we would be happy to, you know, demonstrate further or more detail or for your individual documents if this has some interest for you. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks. Have a good day.